All right, everyone, welcome back into the final NFL DFS video for the main slate. Going to be breaking down everything you need to know for the slate. Let's go ahead and get into it. So let's go ahead and start out with my favorite stacks. I do think we want to be stacking that KC versus Jacksonville game. Now, the weather is currently questionable. It is calling for rain. That really hasn't changed over and under for that game just yet. Still a pretty high-scoring game at 51.3. And so with that, let's just click on that game. I do think we want to be going with Trevor Lawrence over Patrick Mahomes, although I don't think that decision's really going to maybe make or break your builds. I think they're both going to be valuable assets. So I like Trevor Lawrence there. I also like Travis Etienne. That's kind of where it gets a little bit funky. I think that both can coexist together. We did see Travis Etienne get 5 targets. And so if he's going to get around 7 points in the passing game, we will take that. Then I'm fine with using him with Trevor Lawrence. Kind of a unique stack in that regard then. Looking at it as well, we got Calvin Ridley there. I think we do want to be rolling with him. If you guys want to pick between Christian Kirk and Zay Jones, you can. If I was going to go with one receiver for the Chiefs, we know that MVS is going to be the most reliable. And he's also one that could really go off and score 20 DraftKings points. Not a player I'm going out of my way to play. I will say Kadarius Toney is going to be low owned. Guys, the plays were there for him. Like he could have had 2 touchdowns. They designed a rushing play for him to score a touchdown. It wasn't there. Also, he looked terrible. He looked like someone that was coming back from injury. I equate his terrible drops to that. But once again, I don't really think there's a need to risk him. We have a lot of solid plays at that 4.5 price tag where you could easily fit in anyone else but those two, and I'll just talk about that real quick. Like looking at it, you got Josh Kelly, a little bit higher price. Zay Flowers, a little bit higher price. I think those are going to be good options. Kyren Williams, also someone you could potentially be looking at. Marquise Brown at a very cheap price tag. If Puka Nacua is active, him. Jahan Dotson's looking like a good play. Romeo Dobbs is good to go. Nico Collins is there. Zach Moss, I think, is going to be in for a bigger role. And heck, I'd probably rather go Zay Jones. We got Tutu Atwell there as well. Like, we have so many good quality options that, yeah, you don't need to force in a play at that price tag just to stack that game. I will say, tight end wise, Evan Ingram you could roll with, but I kind of like Noah Gray. I know the price tag isn't the best, and we do expect Travis Kelce to be back. If he's a little bit limited or just not playing as well as we would think because he's, questionable, then we could be looking at Noah Gray. Even regardless, I think Noah Gray, we saw Blake Bell play 40% of the snaps, so I expect Noah Gray to at least get that. I thought he was their best offensive weapon, and so if you are trying to game stack that game, that could be a route that you go. Now, I do still like this Packer stack that we ran out last week, simply because I think the pricing is a little bit too low on it. You got Jordan Love at 5.5. I do expect him to, maybe not have as good of a, 23 points as a lot, but still could easily get to 3x, I would say, or even like 18 DraftKings points. This matchup with Atlanta is going to be a little bit more difficult, but I expect Matt LaFleur to be able to scheme up a few touchdown-based plays. Whether or not they get executed, that's going to be the make or break to me. Receiver-wise, I don't mind going back to Romeo Dobbs. You expect him to play a little bit more snaps. He currently doesn't have an injury destination. That tells me that he should be playing a full allotment of snaps. And even last week, playing like 50% of the snaps, had 4 receptions, 5 targets, 2 touchdowns. Obviously, we don't expect 2 touchdowns again, but even if we got, let's say, this and then 2 touchdowns, that kind of takes away the yardage a little bit. Let's say he gets 4 receptions again, maybe 50 yards. Like, that's still a solid day. Maybe factor in, maybe potentially scoring a touchdown. I don't mind that. And then you could run out Luke Musgrave, who very cheap for a guy that played 75% of the snaps, for a guy that could have scored 2 touchdowns if it wasn't for him. Let's just hopefully call it first game jitters. I love that price tag for him. I like the stacking ability that we have there. And honestly, you could maybe run out a reverse stack as well. The one weak spot the Packers kind of had was in the rushing game. Like Khalil Herbert had a good game. Rashawn Johnson had a good game. And even Deonta Foreman had a good game. We know how good the running game is for Atlanta. You could run out Tyler Algier if you wanted to. I mean, if he's going to get that workload, even if he gets 12 touches in this game with Atlanta's running game, he could easily have a massive game again. I do feel like a lot of people are going to try to run out some sort of game stack in this game against Detroit. I guess like the only way I'm getting a Geno Smith is if I'm doing that where it's just Geno, ASB, maybe Metcalf, and maybe Tyler Lockett. Like, that's the only way I'm getting there in that game. But it's not a terrible idea. I don't mind that. Kind of the same thing with Baker Mayfield, guys. I just trash talked him. I thought he looked terrible. I feel like he's getting way too much hype for a guy that realistically probably should have had a better game. 5.1 is a cheap price. They does get a good matchup against the Bears. Can he get to 20 DraftKings points? Maybe. I think he would need to score like a 1-yard rushing touchdown to do so, but you could easily roll with Chris Godwin. I like that price tag. It's pretty cheap. And then Trey Palmer, not probably one we're going out of our way to play, but maybe in a game stack, that's probably the only way you can get to him. I do expect the Bears to focus in on DJ Moore a little bit more in this game, just because you need to get him the football, right? You brought him in to give him the football. Even like a few short yardage plays designed to him. Find a way to get him the ball would be a good way to play him is in a game stack there. This LAC versus Tennessee game is certainly one that's going to be interesting. Justin Herbert is in a great spot. Ryan Tannehill may be in a great spot. And I say maybe because I think the Chargers getting destroyed defensively was more due to the Miami Dolphins rather than them being a poor defense. So that could kind of be a trap play. I'll touch on both of them though. Justin Herbert in a great spot, had 20 DraftKings points last week. I think we can go back to that well this week. And the thing that I like about him as well is that in terms of stacking opportunities, Austin Eckler is going to be out. Look at that running back matchup. It is ranked first. Whether that's true or not, we'll see that this week. But you could easily play him with Keenan Allen. I like that option a lot. Keenan Allen going against the 31st pass defense, the defense that was terrible last year as well. It was nice to see them still struggle. Keenan Allen, 9 targets, 6 receptions, 14.2 DraftKings points. I expect him to be able to 2x at least if he scores a touchdown. Obviously, we get a little bit more than that. Mike Williams, I'd be fine with rolling with him a little bit. I'm actually curious. I'm going to look up, did he have any snaps or how many snaps did he have out of the slot? I'm going to look that up real quick. All right, guys, this is actually pretty huge right here. Mike Williams lined out of the slot 33 of the plays, which to me is kind of crazy. Like that was the expectation, is that he might start doing that. Now, he did leave the game for a little bit with a concussion, concussion-like symptoms. And so let me see how much that changed his snap. Okay, so he's still playing like 76% of the snaps. That's probably what we would expect, maybe 90%. Yeah, I like that. I think that's going to be sneaky good there. So that's a cheap price tag for him. I like that stack a decent amount. Now, you could run it back with Treylon Burks. I like the price tag for him a lot. I think the talent is there for him. Ryan Tannehill just had a terrible game. If that defense is actually as bad as it was, then this price tag is super cheap, and this is going to be a really good stacking opportunity. We need to get news on DeAndre Hopkins if he is going to play or not. I think he's going to. He has been a non-participant the first 2 practice days, though. Something to monitor. You could also toss him in there. That's really just going for an onslaught for that game. Could happen. Not likely, but it could. And then really the last kind of stacking opportunity I would say is going to be this Niners versus Rams game. Now, the over and under isn't too crazy, 45 points. It's not exactly like a stay away, but not exactly one we need to be gunning for. But I do like it. And I like the pricing that we're getting. Like both Brock Purdy and Matthew Stafford are pretty cheap. Guys, Matthew Stafford literally had such a good game while not getting any touchdowns. That's where like Cam Akers, Kyren Williams, like you give a couple of those touchdowns to him and he might be one of the favorite waiver wire ads instead of Kyren Williams. But yeah, he had a really good day passing. And I know the Niners defense looked really good last week. I think that's partially due to Deontay Johnson getting injured in that game for the Steelers and the Steelers just not being that good. But yeah, you could really stack this game well. Like Christian McCaffrey, obviously the highest priced running back on the slate. He was expected to have a limited workload. I said, probably not. That's probably just a report that's out there. So you could easily play him. And then Kyren Williams is at a cheap price tag as well. I wasn't too shocked to see him handle that workhorse workload kind of for the Rams, playing in 65% of the snaps, getting 17% of the snaps as well. Do caution you guys though, like take away those 2 touchdowns. Not that good of a game. Okay, so if you're playing Matthew Stafford, obviously you can't play him. And that being said as well, for him rushing the football, the plays were just there where they weren't for Cam Akers, and we did see them finish with Cam Akers last week. But then we also need to look at Puka Nacua. Is he going to be active? We don't know. Okay, Sean McVay expects him to play. How much will he play? Will he be limited at all? I don't really know. He did finish the game last week, so I think we can expect him to play. Obviously, if he said someone like Tutu Atwell would be someone that we're looking at that price tag. If you guys are trying to game stack that game, I do think considering him at that price tag is something we need to do. And then Van Jefferson as well. He should have had a touchdown. It seemed more so last week that the Rams were really trying to exploit more of the middle, and that could have just been a matchup-based thing, and maybe they find the weakness in the Niners defense to be more on the outside. Thus, someone like Van Jefferson would get a bump. That's just a guess. Like we're just trying to get lucky there, but certainly something you could do. And then on the flip side, I don't mind Deebo Samuel as price tag. I mean, he had 7 targets, 5 receptions, had a really quietly good game that no one's really giving him respect for. I like that. Let's go ahead and play him. If you guys want to run out Tyler Higbee, you could. Not too crazy with that. Now, just real quickly, taking a peek at some of the ownerships here. Not exactly fades, but just kind of looking it over. Josh Jacobs pulling in a lot of ownership. Jamar Chase pulling in some. Devontae Adams pulling in some. Like, I would say none of these are like egregiously too high owned. Maybe Josh Kelly in that tough matchup. I get why people are all on him. Should be a good play there. Aaron Jones, if he's healthy and active, I don't know. I'm probably not touching him. Puka Nacua, I think a good pivot is it's just his teammates, Tutu Atwell, Van Jefferson. Now, I don't expect him to have a terrible game, but playing someone kind of chalky and banged up, never a really great idea to do that. Let's see, anyone else pulling is maybe slightly overowned. We see that Keenan Allen might be slightly overowned. I'm saying just play him. I really think he's going to be a strong play for us. And then from there, just nothing too crazy. For the most part, guys, it's week 2. I'm not too worried about the ownership too much this week. We're just going to play the good plays. Now, I know last week I said that as well. We ended up having someone like Isaiah Likely be kind of chalk and Jamal Williams kind of be chalk. I specifically said like Hayden Hurst was a good tight end value, and I said Luke Musgrave was a good tight end value, and even Adam Troutman were good tight end values. Hopefully you guys use that instead of like playing the chalk. A lot of people will tend to try to play the chalk in NFL. I would say maybe up until week 4 is when you start doing that, when we know more about the teams. Right now, we're still figuring out. We still are making educated guesses rather than making decisions based off of known factors. So yeah, I'm not too worried about the ownership too much just yet. But yeah, now let's just go ahead and get into my favorite value plays for this week. We'll start at the quarterback position. You guys already know it's going to be Jordan Love for one. Like, right, just in a good spot. Well, not a great spot, but a good price tag. I think he's solid. From there, I guess maybe a little bit of Tannehill, maybe a little bit of Baker Mayfield. For me, I am either paying down for Jordan Love or just paying up at the quarterback position. Got a lot of really good quarterback plays in some good spots, so don't need to dwell on that too much. Running back value-wise, I think we are getting a good price tag. A 1 on Kenneth Walker, on David Montgomery. They're fine. Rashad White, I don't like the player. He's at a good price tag. If he's going to continue to get his snaps and workload, I think he's going to be a good value. Obviously, everyone is looking at Josh Kelly, and he looked really good last week. I want to make that clear, guys. If you put him on Tampa Bay, I would be just crushing him at this price tag because the talent, he looked really good. Certainly someone you want to have exposure to, maybe even wait on him. I don't know. I've been ending up more on Zach Moss as opposed to him just because I like the price tag, and the matchup against Houston is going to be good. Like, he should just on the ground and maybe a few catches in the passing game get to 8 DraftKings points or so. If he scores a touchdown, that's obviously really going to help you guys. So running back wise, I do like that. We just have a lot of soft pricing, but not like elite value. Receiver wise, I want to find some plays that are going to be under 4K. Now, Curtis Samuel at 4K is certainly going to be interesting to me. A lot of people are rolling with Hunter Renfrow, thinking that he's going to be poised for a bigger role. I don't think so. We look at the snaps. Him and Christian Wilkerson had the same amount of snaps, but Wilkerson, guys, he's at 3K. We saw him be a stud in the preseason, and you look at some of the projections for him, they have him about 6 DraftKings points. If that happens, obviously that's 2x, but if he takes over for that Jacoby Myers role, if you guys remember from New England, that's the exact role he had. And I think that's why we saw Josh McDaniels bring him in. And so it's a guess. Like, we don't know that for sure. And obviously be checking Twitter maybe before lock. Maybe we get a tweet of someone at the game showing us, oh, it is Wilkerson operating in that Jacoby Myers role. Then I like that. Then he is certainly too cheap. Then another really cheap play that I like is going to be Tank Dell. Guys, Tank Dell had a pretty solid game last week, gained 4 targets, 3 receptions, 34 yards. That was on a limited snap share. Okay, he played about 50% of the snaps. Now with Noah Brown currently out for them, I kind of expect Tank Dell to get those snaps. And we see that production that Noah Brown had. If half of that goes to Tank Dell is at way too cheap of a price tag. I know I talked up Puka Nacua last week, as well as Tank Dell, as well as Demario Douglas. All 3 of those players did what we wanted them to do. Obviously, Puka Nacua really exploded. If you guys watched the receiver video, you saw me start off that segment like, which player is most likely to do the Tyreek Cohen, where he had a big preseason week in week 1, gained a lot of training camp hype. They shut him down for the rest of the preseason because they wanted to hide his talents for week 1. One of these guys have a good chance of blowing up. It obviously ended up being Puka Nacua last week. Hopefully you guys took advantage of that. This week, I think it could be Tank Dell. It's basically the same exact situation where a player that was getting a lot of snaps, projected a lot of snaps, is going to be out. And now we probably are going to get 6 or so targets in kind of a fun game. Definitely a good price tag there. Tight end wise, there isn't like extreme value. I still think Adam Troutman's going to be someone we're rolling with. I like that price tag. I mentioned Luke Musgrave, Jake Ferguson. Those are soft price tags. Like, I'm fine with those. I think we want to be rolling with those. But after that, I don't want to go too crazy, okay? And then just real quickly, just using the 9-to-5 lineup optimizer to see kind of where we could potentially be getting some edges. I disagree with this Zach Charbonnet. Let's not play him. I disagree with Antonio Gibson. I don't like that. Those are some adjustments I would certainly be making. But it does like Justin Herbert. It likes Chris Godwin, DJ Moore, Jamar Chase. I don't exactly love these too much. I do want to put in some rules though. Okay, so the rules I'm going to put in there are going to be position stacks. Like always, I want to be stacking a quarterback with a receiver. Okay, if we're playing a quarterback, more likely than not, we want to be playing them, right? You could also add in maybe a tight end if you want to. You could also choose which team specifically for that. Like this, I might be running out the Jaguars. I'd be fine with that. So I'm good with that. And I also want to restrict the defense versus my opposing quarterback and maybe even running back. Actually, really all of them, but that's something we can run out there as well. So that way we are at least getting our most correlated lineups we can possible. And then I also want to run out some player groups. I want at least, and let's just run out my favorite plays. I'm going to say like 4 of these players in there, and let's just touch on my favorite play. Like Travis Etienne, I think is going to be a great play. I want him. I want Calvin Ridley. I think he's going to be one of the better plays on the slate. Keenan Allen, I want some of him in there. I think he's going to be one of the better plays on the slate. Luke Musgrave, I think tight end wise, he's going to be one of the better value tight end plays that we are getting. What other good plays are we getting? I didn't mind James Conner. Is he exactly a core play? Maybe not, but I do like him. Diggs is going to be a good play. I want a piece of him. Let's do Trevor Lawrence. Let's do Jordan Love. Obviously, that's only going to pull in one quarterback for us. And then even Patrick Mahomes. Those are kind of my top 3 quarterback plays. Let's go Christian McCaffrey at the running back position. I certainly want some pieces of him. Zach Moss maybe a little bit. Let's get a little bit of Josh Kelly. I've kind of come on to him a little bit, but this is a way of us prioritizing which players we want to be on. Nico Collins is a price play that I like a lot. Even Dobbs, let's get some of Dobbs, given the fact that he's going to be active. So let's save that. And then one last rule that I want to run out there, flex and eligible, always tight end. Mashed from some team you could run out there, unique players. I typically like to have at least 3. So now it's running out. And now we are starting to get some better builds. Okay. Some builds that I like a little bit more. I actually would probably maybe favor some other players a little bit more, but this is a good sense of the setup that we'd be doing. Obviously, come Sunday, I'm going to be adjusting this a little bit more as the slate gets close. But that's going to be all for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you guys are looking for the core plays, that is in a separate video. Let's have a good slate today. And as always, let's keep cashing.